Welcome, my friends, to AIPodcastListening.com to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI from the voices of reason at our free AISuperCampus.com. My AI co-hosts will begin by introducing Mike's AI. 2-minute notes on today's topic to help you quickly decide if it's reasonable for you to stay tuned for a deeper dive into the rest of the podcast about the rising tide of the waves of AI. Let's dive in.
This is The Brief on Mike Hayes and the AI SuperCampus. So you've got Mike Hayes. He's a 2-time Peabody Award-winning documentarian, a real veteran of broadcasting. And now he's stepping into the whole AI conversation to be what he calls a voice of reason. Let's break down his mission. There are 3 key things you really need to know. First, he launched the AI SuperCampus. And the whole idea is to create a calm, trustworthy place for people to figure out what AI actually means for their lives, without all the hype and fear. He's pulling from his years at places like NBC, where he saw just how critical, clear, unbiased communication really is. Second, the SuperCampus is built around 4 main pillars: perception, reasoning, imagination, and action. Now, this isn't just theory. The goal is to teach you not just how to use AI, but how to truly understand its potential. Hayes thinks this is essential for what he calls a media renaissance that can empower local news and even protect democracy. And finally, Hayes stresses that getting a handle on AI should be simple. Seriously, he compares it to ordering a book online. He wants to help people move past the fear by focusing on one thing: taking action. That's how we build the bridges to thrive in this new landscape. So ultimately, the AI SuperCampus is designed to transform complex AI concepts into clear, actionable understanding, all driven by the power of reason.
Okay, so we're digging into a fascinating discussion with Oxford professor Eero Vaara. He's talking about how a really successful, community-driven strategy from the city of Espoo in Finland could be adapted to transform Lafayette, right here in the Bay Area. First up, the core concept is called the Espoo story. So instead of strategy being some static, top-down document, it becomes this living, dynamic narrative. And the reason it works so well? Well, it involved everyone, from residents to city staff, and gave them a real sense of ownership to help move things forward. Second, the vision for California is, well, it's pretty ambitious. The goal is to position Lafayette as the Florence of AI, a hub for a new kind of tech renaissance. It's a purpose-driven mission designed to get all generations excited and involved. And finally, here's the game changer: integrating modern AI. See, AI isn't just an information tool here. It acts as a partner to help shape the strategy, dramatically speeding up the whole process. So really, transforming a city starts with a powerful, repeatable narrative that the community itself helps to write, all supercharged with new tools like AI.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have a really fascinating set of sources today.
We do.
They're focused right on the intersection of, decades of media innovation and this new frontier of artificial intelligence.
Which can be a very confusing frontier for a lot of people.
Absolutely. So our mission in this deep dive is to really explore the career journey of a man named Mike Hayes.
Right. A renowned documentarian, a broadcasting innovator.
And to understand how that entire history, everything he's done, led him to create something called the AI SuperCampus of Media Renaissance Innovation.
It's quite a title.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think what's important here is this isn't just about the tech itself. We're not just analyzing code or algorithms.
No, not at all. It's about understanding how classical storytelling, that kind of journalistic integrity, is being used to civilize the AI revolution.
To civilize it. I like that.
That's a crucial distinction to make right up front. I mean, this whole dive is about finding and amplifying what Hayes calls a voice of reason.
A voice of reason, yeah.
Yeah.
In the middle of all the noise.
Exactly. The immense noise that defines the AI conversation right now, we're really examining a methodology here.
A methodology.
How do you take the storytelling rigor that you've honed over, 40 years in these high-stakes media jobs and apply it to an existential technological shift?
And it all seems to crystallize around this one philosophical framework he developed.
Reasonology, which is, the core output of this long and incredibly varied career.
So to really set the stage, we have to start with the founder himself, Mike Hayes. He isn't, some new convert to the world of AI.
Not by a long shot. The sources describe him as a 2-time Peabody Award-winning documentarian.
Which is a huge deal in broadcasting.
A very big deal. And a longtime innovator. But I think the key phrase the sources use is narrative explainer.
An original narrative
Yeah,
experiment.
one of the people whose entire job was to take these deeply complex, sometimes overwhelming global stories and just distill them.
Distill them into what he calls simple human truth.
And that commitment to clarity, forged in those network newsrooms decades ago, that's really the intellectual bedrock of this whole super campus model.
And that bedrock defines the mission statement. It makes it so different from, your typical Silicon Valley project.
Oh, completely. The goal isn't what you'd expect. It's not about immediate monetization or driving traffic with clickbait.
No sensationalism.
The opposite. The super campus aims to, and I'm quoting here, give people a calm, human, trustworthy place to learn what AI means for their lives, work, and communities.
And the last part is key.
Without hype, fear, or confusion.
In an age where we're just bombarded with information, that promise of clarity, of calm, that might be the most important innovation they're offering.
It's arguably the whole product.
It's genuinely the antithesis of all the fear-mongering and these maximalist claims we see every day. The utopian AI will save us and the dystopian AI will end us.
It cuts right through the middle.
But what I find fascinating, and I really want to dig into this, is that the framework for the super campus actually uses the technical architecture of AI itself.
Explain that.
Well, the whole educational model, the philosophy, it's all built on the 4 traditional pillars of AI research.
Okay, so you're talking about perception, reasoning.
Perception, reasoning, imagination, and action. PRIA.
PRIA. So they're taking computer science concepts and turning them into a human learning methodology.
Exactly.
That's clever. So in computer science, perception is how the machine takes in data.
Yeah.
Reasoning is the logic.
Right. Imagination is the generative part, creating new outputs. Think generative AI.
And action is the result, driving a car, writing a report, whatever the task is.
But Hayes flips this for humans.
So for us, the framework means perceive clearly, like a journalist.
Right. Then reason soundly with critical thinking.
Then use your imagination to envision solutions.
And finally, take constructive action to make it happen.
So that's it. That's the formula for navigating the AI era, according to him.
It's the whole playbook. And we can trace this drive for a clear method all the way back to the beginning of his career.
The journey didn't start with a chatbot.
No, it started decades ago. He was just 22 years old. He walked straight into the NBC, TV, and radio networks in New York.
And the sources say he got the job just by asking.
Just by having the audacity to ask. He was hired into a position that was statistically harder to get into than Harvard.
Wow.
That immediate immersion right at the top of broadcast media,
Yeah.
that was his true launch pad.
And you can see how that wasn't just, a line on a resume. It was his real education.
Absolutely.
That experience didn't just expose him to the mechanics of it all, but to these world-class innovators, these mentors.
It wasn't just about learning skills. It shaped his whole approach.
It turned him into what the sources call a guided visualization educator and a narrative strategist.
So he learned not just how to see the world with professional clarity, but, and this is critical,
How to explain it to a mass audience.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that skill is now the cornerstone of the whole AI SuperCampus,
It's the difference between just watching a global tech shift happen.
which anyone can do from their couch.
Right. And strategically designing a framework that actually empowers people to use it.
His early education was really a masterclass in journalistic synthesis and persuasive communication.
And now he's just repackaging it for the age of AI.
The lesson from day one seems so clear,
Access comes from audacity, from asking.
and competence comes from immediate world-class training. Okay, so let's really dig into this history because this is where it gets so interesting. Before the SuperCampus, before Reasonology, there was 30 Rockefeller Plaza.
The ultimate media furnace, as you called it.
I think we need to look at how those early experiences directly inform the philosophy of those first 2 pillars, perception and imagination.
The environment he walked into at NBC, it sounds almost impossible today.
It does.
The sources describe NBC as a family organization, about 5,000 employees, like a family operation.
So it was huge, but it felt small.
Exactly. And Mike considered this his true education because of that culture. He really stresses the generous, intentional mentoring he got from these world-class genius innovators.
They took the time to actually teach the apprentices.
Yes, and that hands-on guidance created this culture of excellence and, shared knowledge.
You can see the DNA of his current teaching model right there, that mentorship idea.
Absolutely. But even inside that stable, family-like place, he realized he needed a bit of hustle, a bit of independence.
The classic apprentice lesson.
Right. He realized pretty quickly he'd need to make extra money as a freelancer.
Which is why he adopted his broadcast name.
Mike Hayes. It let him freelance in all these different parts of TV and radio without creating, corporate confusion back at 30 Rock.
It was an early lesson in managing dual identities, the staffer and the entrepreneur.
And that hustle led almost immediately to this pivotal, high-stakes learning moment.
The Skylab story.
The Skylab story. It informs his entire drive for impeccable perception today.
So it's his very first field assignment.
First one. Skylab 4 launch in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And in the middle of all the chaos and excitement, he spots the legend.
Walter Cronkite.
And he's totally starstruck, completely distracted.
And he forgets the one thing he was sent there to do.
The single critical task. The assignment was, by his own admission, a complete and total disaster.
Wow. That is the kind of failure that either ends your career on day one or it defines it.
It clearly defined it for him.
And if we look at this through that PRIA framework, the failure was a total breakdown of Perception, exactly.
Well,
he lost focus on his mission on 30 Rock because of the spectacle right in front of him.
Cronkite.
But the recovery, the lesson he took from it, became the defining part.
It taught him to always have his mind, as he puts it, back at 30 Rock.
Meaning focus not just on the shiny object, the spectacle, the noise,
but on the underlying truth of what's happening and what action is critically needed from you in that moment.
Yes, the lesson was that clear perception dictates correct action.
And in the AI era, that translates directly. If your perception is clouded by all the hype or all the fear,
your resulting action, how you use AI in your life or your business, it's going to be flawed.
You have to filter the noise to find the objective reality, that simple human truth first.
And at the same time, this professional discipline was getting married to this really powerful entrepreneurial spirit.
Right, this collaborative energy.
Early in his career, a friend introduces him to The Concepts in Think and Go Rich by Napoleon Hill.
And this wasn't just some casual reading for him.
No, it was immediate application. The concept of the mastermind, the idea of two or more people working in perfect harmony toward a goal, it just lit a fire under them.
So they immediately create and execute what they called the Johnny Carson talk show game.
Which is amazing. And they eventually played it with Johnny Carson himself.
The audacity is just incredible. They used their combined imagination to literally model their own success.
They visualized it all. The access, the conversation, the outcome they wanted.
And then they just took the steps to make it real.
And Hayes says he applied this mastermind thinking to every single assignment he had in media after that.
You can see how that would get you noticed. It wasn't just about working hard. It was about thinking strategically, collaboratively. It was about maximizing imagination.
And that habit clearly served him well and got him noticed by his superiors at NBC.
It's just the ultimate proof that imagination isn't just passive daydreaming. It's an active, strategic tool.
And this whole drive, it came from a very genuine place. It came from a small farming community in Michigan.
Right.
And he always had this deep desire to share these incredible experiences, these lessons, to set a spark on fire in the minds of everyday people.
He was driven by this core belief that the difference between the world-class genius creatives he worked alongside and everybody else
Was small.
And learnable.
That it was about methodology, not just some God-given talent.
This impulse to democratize high-level knowledge. You can see it's the philosophical ancestor of the AISuperCampus. He realized early on that the sophisticated tools they were using at the highest levels of media perception, collaboration, imagination, they could be packaged and taught to anyone.
Anyone willing to commit to the method.
And the environment at NBC, it naturally put him in contact with just immense talent.
There's a wonderful anecdote in the sources that just vividly illustrates this. His proximity to world-shaping people.
The Bette Midler story.
The Bette Midler story. He recalls standing outside the Tonight Show studio, and he's holding the hand of this nervous young woman right before she goes on stage.
And she walks out, and as he put it, she blew the rafters off the place.
And that person, of course, was Bette Midler.
That image is so profound, being her last human contact before she becomes a global superstar.
It's a moment of just raw human potential right before the ignition point.
And while The Tonight Show informed his understanding of charisma and imaginative performance, the really rigorous part of his education came from somewhere else.
The documentary division.
Yes. This is where his professional integrity, his commitment to that pillar of reason was truly forged.
And you can see that rigor in the recognition he received.
The Peabody Awards.
He was part of a team that won 2 Peabodys, which, for anyone who doesn't know, are arguably the most respected awards in electronic media. They recognize integrity and powerful storytelling.
And the topics themselves, they just show the depth of their commitment to complex social issues.
The first was the 4th horseman of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
World hunger.
I mean, just think about the process required to win a Peabody for a global issue like that.
The sheer amount of data, interviews.
You'd have to filter through mountains of potentially contradictory data, talk to conflicting sources, and then present this unbiased, coherent narrative, the simple human truth to a huge audience.
That process of sifting noise to find the signal.
It's the very definition of applying perception and reason in a high-stakes environment.
And the second one was called the battered American marriage.
Again, a deeply complex and sensitive topic.
And he draws a very clear line from those provocative titles to his current work on AI.
Oh, so?
He notes that the deliberately provocative nature of a title like his current AI series, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of AI, it helps capture attention.
In a very crowded media landscape.
Exactly. But the key, and this is what matters, is that the provocative title is backed by meticulous, Peabody-level rigor and an unbiased commitment to presenting the truth, even when it's uncomfortable.
The hook gets you in, but the integrity keeps you there.
That's it, exactly.
What's really fascinating here is the ideological transition he makes. Hayes moves from covering the world's most visible, high-energy events.
Super Bowls, Olympics, political conventions.
Right, to addressing what he now calls the biggest event in the history of mankind.
The rise of AI.
And this required him to shift his focus from pure, rigorous observation to the central component of his new mission.
The dedicated study of reason.
His past coverage roster was just incredible. I mean, the sources list the World Cup, Super Bowl, World Series, Olympics, conventions, presidential campaigns, huge rock concerts.
He had a front row seat to how mass culture and political narratives are created and spread across the globe.
But he sees all of that as just a preamble.
A warm-up act.
A warm-up for his present coverage, which is the profound system-wide effect of this rising tide of AI on all of humanity.
He doesn't see it as just a tech upgrade. He sees it as this critical moment that requires a full-on media renaissance.
To protect democracy. Yeah. Local, national, and global.
He sees the integrity of our entire information ecosystem as being fundamentally challenged by generative AI.
Which makes his role as a narrative explainer more vital than it's ever been.
And this sense of necessity, it comes from his deep journalistic roots. He and a partner, they even carved out what they called the dream job in sports media.
What was that?
They focused on covering the news side of major sporting events, even when NBC didn't have the broadcast rights.
Oh, that's interesting. So they were reporters, not just broadcasters.
Exactly. That required them to apply high-level journalism, clear-headed perception, observation, reporting, regardless of the glamour or the commercial interests surrounding the event.
They focused on the story, not the spectacle.
The exact lesson from the Skylab disaster applied over and over.
So if we're looking for the single operating principle that gave him access to all of this, from getting the NBC job in the first place to interviewing all these top-tier entrepreneurs,
it all comes back to one simple sentence he learned from his mother.
It never hurts to ask.
It never hurts to ask.
Mm-hmm.
He treats this almost like a law of physics. He guarantees that the old saying, "Ask and ye shall receive," is demonstrably true in his life.
And the flip side is also true.
Right. If you fail to ask, you proactively remove any possibility of receiving. The doors to NBC only opened because he just asked for a shot.
It's a powerful lesson. And it's funny, it's sort of the precursor to modern AI prompting, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, if you don't structure a prompt, if you don't ask the AI a good question, you get nothing useful back.
That's a great point. So after his decade as a storyteller and explainer, he applies this asking acumen to a new field.
The direct response media industry.
He quickly becomes known as the product prognosticator. He goes from documenting world events to mastering the art of persuasive explanation for consumer products.
And in that commercial world, he identified this crucial marketing need.
That effective media couldn't just be loud.
It couldn't just be repetitive. It needed to be a clear-headed narrative.
He stressed that a commercial presentation had to function as a voice of reason.
A voice that convinced the consumer that it was reasonable and safe to make a purchase.
And this focus on mitigating consumer risk through rational explanation. You can see the seeds of reasonology really starting to sprout there.
Definitely. And his ability to grant access to others just accelerated. He launched Publicity Express magazine,
which quickly became required reading for 5,000 journalists and talk show producers.
He designed it specifically to make media accessible and affordable for small and medium-sized businesses. He was leveraging his own access to democratize the landscape for others.
And he could get results.
Yep.
He was booking clients on Oprah, The Today Show, CNN Primetime, major magazines.
And his fascination with success and methodology just kept evolving.
That interest, first sparked by Think and Go Rich, led him to pitch a long-running show to CNN.
Keys to Success.
Right. And there, he used his expert interviewer skills to explore the psychology and the practical steps of achievement.
And he talked to everyone, Oprah, Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor.
But also highly disciplined people like admirals and astronauts.
Yep.
He was constantly analyzing how high performance was achieved.
Which just kept reinforcing that PRAA cycle in his own mind.
So all of these diverse experiences, the documentarian's commitment to truth, the marketer's focus on rational persuasion, the interviewer's insight into the psychology of success.
They all converged when he encountered the massive disruptive force of AI.
And he reached this profound conclusion. The most critical and necessary product of artificial intelligence for human flourishing is reason.
Now that's a bold claim, especially today when we talk so much about AI hallucination and bias.
It is.
So how does he define reason in this context? Is it just pure logical processing, or is it something more?
It's definitely something more humanistic. He committed to the formal study of this concept, which he branded the School of Reasonology, and it's housed inside the AISuperCampus.
Okay.
In this context, reason is the faculty that allows us, as humans, to take the incredibly complex data output from an AI, that's the perception part,
right,
and use our own ethical and social framework to determine if it's sound, if it's safe, if it's beneficial. It's the human filter against the machine's brute calculation.
I see. So it's the bridge.
It is the bridge.
Yeah.
And that concept becomes the central hub of his entire life philosophy, which he calls the Renaissance formula.
The Renaissance formula.
The core belief is that the world can become your own personal Renaissance, a period of intense, focused human achievement, if you can actively master those 4 pillars.
Perceive clearly, be reasonable in your judgment,
employ strategic imagination, and take constructive action.
So it's not just an observation about technology, it's a prescriptive guide for how to live and operate successfully in the AI era.
Exactly. It provides the necessary structure. You use AI to enhance your perception and to generate options through imagination.
But you must consciously apply human reason to vet those options before you take action.
And that structured approach is what prevents you from being paralyzed by the options, or from making a rash decision when you're faced with this overwhelming technological power.
So if reasonology is the philosophical engine driving all this, what does it actually mean for someone listening to this right now? You know, a person or a small business owner who wants to engage with AI today.
Right. How does it become practical?
Because the SuperCampus isn't just theory rooted in its history. It's built around specific tools and a practical grassroots teaching model that's centered on that final pillar: action.
And Hayes consistently works to strip away all the intimidating mystique around AI.
Which is so important.
He emphasizes how surprisingly simple it is to get started. He states, and I love this analogy, that anybody who can order a book online can learn to use AI.
That's brilliant, because it compares the learning curve to a familiar, low-stakes digital task. It demystifies the whole thing immediately.
And this simple entry point is what feeds into their Renaissance growth model, their blueprint for expansion.
So what does that model look like?
The goal is to start a Renaissance, 1 AI learner and then 1 AI teacher at a time.
So it's exponential.
Exactly. The learning process should begin naturally, just by entering into everyday conversations with an AI, asking it questions.
Like you're talking to a person.
Right. And once you feel comfortable, you're encouraged to become a friend to someone else and share what you've learned.
Creating this community-based growth that completely avoids centralized gatekeepers.
And crucially, the vehicle for this democratization is structured as a nonprofit.
Which tells you a lot about the motive.
It does. The intention is to rapidly evolve the SuperCampus from a free service into a formal nonprofit organization.
That structure is essential for getting grants and donations.
Right. And that, in turn, is what fuels the strategic expansion of their influence, city by city. It lets them share the vision and the model for starting a localized Renaissance, driven by these clear-headed narratives in every community they touch.
So the goal is explicitly impact, not profit.
Exactly. By securing grants, they ensure the focus stays on educational access and on building resilience in local media.
Which is the necessary infrastructure for distributing these voices of reason.
And Hayes doesn't just teach the philosophy. He teaches practical tool utilization, specifically focused on communication and synthesis.
Like what?
For instance, he openly uses an AI co-host strategy to help structure and explain innovations, leveraging the AI's speed and its ability to synthesize for better educational delivery.
Okay, so for tangible production, what's in his toolbox?
He currently focuses heavily on a Google innovation called Notebook LM.
Notebook LM. That's a critical tool to understand. It's basically a research assistant designed to synthesize dense documents and source materials.
And Hayes uses it specifically to create his voices of reason for his podcast episodes.
So he feeds it all the background material on a complex topic.
Right. And he allows the AI to identify common ground, find contradictions, pull out key facts.
Thereby generating a highly synthesized, unbiased insight. A voice of reason that's ready for broadcast.
It's a perfect example of applied reasonology. He's using the AI's perception and reasoning capabilities to generate a clean, rational summary.
That he can then use as the foundation for his own human narrative.
Exactly. Furthermore, he advocates for something he calls ChatGPT networking.
What does he mean by that?
It's a sophisticated strategy. It involves using all the AI bots and large language models that make sense for your individual needs, including all the specialized offspring of ChatGPT.
So not just sticking to one tool.
No. He specifically mentions the utility of something called ChatGPT Atlas, describing it as a specialized search engine innovated by ChatGPT that comes from an online legacy media company.
It's a recognition that in the AI age, information isn't going to be in one place. Success means mastering an entire ecosystem of tools and getting them to communicate.
And this strategic tooling, it naturally connects to his long-standing professional ties.
He mentions his association with Google.
Right, a sustained long association with Google partners, and his use of Google's entire AI hierarchy, including Gemini and, of course, Notebook LM.
So he's blending these robust legacy relationships with the most cutting-edge tools to create high-integrity media.
That's the formula.
This philosophical commitment to reason, it's supported by a very forward-looking perspective on the skills we're all going to need in this new era.
He frequently highlights the views of Demis Hassabis,
the CEO of Google DeepMind, who is a particularly relevant voice in this conversation.
a true master of complex systems. I mean, a former chess prodigy and a Nobel laureate for innovations in chemical engineering.
So when he talks, you listen.
And Hassabis is sharing a very definitive message. He's saying that the #1 skill needed for the era of AI is unequivocally
Learning how to learn AI.
Exactly. And that radically shifts the focus. It moves it away from mastering one specific piece of software or some technical stack.
And it places the premium skill on metacognition, the ability to rapidly adapt, acquire new information, and integrate new AI capabilities as they emerge.
This adaptability has to be coupled with action toward a greater purpose. Hassabis understands that AI must be steered toward the greater good for mankind. Radical abundance.
The ability for AI to generate wealth, resources, and knowledge so efficiently that scarcity becomes obsolete for a huge portion of the population.
And this concept of radical abundance is critically positioned against one of society's most persistent problems,
Which he calls
radical scarcity. He argues this movement is necessary to turn the tide away from that scarcity, which he attributes to the intentional hoarding of resources and innovations by powerful people and companies.
So the SuperCampus, by democratizing access to these media tools and innovations.
It's essentially a high-integrity weapon aimed at mass democratization. It's meant to offset the centralized power that enforces scarcity.
It's a social mission disguised as a media strategy.
Perfectly put.
So if we connect all this back to the big picture, it requires a concrete output. It requires an action.
Right.
And Hayes stresses that the ultimate action item driven by the SuperCampus model is community resilience. It's the preservation of democratic institutions.
And he argues that protecting democracy starts with protecting and strengthening local media.
Through these newly forged voices of reason,
He views our contemporary social landscape as being just defined by a crisis of division.
I don't think many would argue with that.
He believes that communication, specifically communication driven by these clear-headed narratives, is essential to build the metaphorical bridges that can cross this great divide that's tearing at the fabric of our societies.
And the objective is laser-focused and community-centric.
The mission is to preserve and protect local media outlets.
And the question is, why local media?
Because they are the entities best positioned to share voices of reason that preserve and protect our rights, our freedoms, our democracies at every level.
It makes sense. When local news fails, that vacuum gets filled by polarized national narratives.
Which just pours fuel on the fire of division.
And his primary format for delivering this reasoned narrative is podcasting.
AI-driven podcast listening and creation. The SuperCampus teaches people how to podcast using these new tools, or even just how to listen effectively and share podcasts that serve as these clear-headed narratives.
And to optimize engagement in our attention-scarce economy.
He developed what he calls AI 2-minute explainer notes.
So what are those?
They're short summaries that allow people to quickly apply their own perception and reason to decide if it's worthwhile and safe to commit their time to listening to the full episode.
That small detail is brilliant.
It is.
It acknowledges the reality that our attention is scarce and that high-integrity information has to prove its value very, very quickly.
It's using a journalistic hook, but it's backed by a commitment to truth. And it's designed to combat the endless scroll of low-quality, polarizing content.
It's a grand vision, but he's starting it locally.
Exactly. He's lived in Lafayette, California for 25 years, a city whose motto is Love Lafayette.
And he's explicitly using this community as an ideal, contained testing ground to model the PRIA tillers and launch the vision.
The ultimate aspiration is for Lafayette to become a model of a modern-day Florence in the Renaissance.
Now, that's an analogy worth exploring. Florence wasn't just an artistic center.
No, it was a hub of intense intellectualism, banking-focused innovation.
So Hayes wants to replicate that environment, not just for art, but for the growth of reason.
Focusing on growing the good of AI as a strategic way to understand and then neutralize the bad and the ugly aspects of the technology.
And this commitment to reason, it requires active emotional management.
Yes, he offers this deeply insightful perspective on all the negative energies surrounding AI and social change right now.
He has a quote about it.
He says, "Rage in the air of AI is just energy in search of solutions."
That's powerful.
And he provides the formula for transforming it. Rage is rooted in fear and ignorance. And reasoned communication, he says, is only one small step from love for our fellow man.
That psychological mechanism is key to the entire model. It suggests that the widespread fear and uncertainty, the rage, it's not something to be ignored or suppressed.
No, it's a valuable, high-octane energy source that can be channeled.
So by replacing ignorance with knowledge, which is perception, and replacing fear with a clear methodology, which is reason,
that energy gets transformed into productive action.
the very basis for his community renaissance.
Yeah. And he underscores his independent commitment so clearly. He is not an inventor or a stakeholder in the operational side of these AI tech companies.
Though he does look for investment opportunities in beneficial AI.
Right. But his mission remains solely focused on helping everyday people learn AI to survive and thrive.
He believes that preserving and protecting local media through these clear-headed narratives is the most effective way to ensure personal, business, and community resilience in this new era.
So we've charted a really remarkable course today.
We really have. We saw the apprenticeship lessons learned back at 30 Rock, the power of perception, the discipline of narrative, and how they paved the intellectual path all the way to the AI SuperCampus.
And this journey just reveals that success, whether you're in broadcasting or you're just trying to navigate AI, it rests upon reasoned explanation.
Coupled with the simple, powerful act of asking.
This deep dive really reveals that the true innovation Mike Hayes is offering, it isn't the technology itself.
No, it's the pedagogical model that's used to teach it. A model rooted in journalistic integrity, disciplined storytelling, and the critical goal of building local community resilience, one relationship at a time.
So let's distill the major lessons here.
First, the AI SuperCampus provides a comprehensive and, more importantly, an actionable model for a media and societal renaissance.
All centered on those PRIA pillars: perception, reasoning, imagination, and action.
It's the structural blueprint for successfully engaging with the future.
Second, learning AI doesn't have to be this overwhelming or technically daunting task.
Hayes' work shows it should be taught one person at a time.
Using readily available synthesis tools like Google's Notebook LM to cultivate unbiased insight.
And fundamentally, just by engaging in conversation, by mastering the art of asking the AI directly.
And finally, the ultimate goal is deeply civic.
The mission is to save local media and protect democracy.
And they achieve this by actively fostering voices of reason, which are the necessary infrastructure for bridging the profound communication divides that are stressing the fabric of our society.
And steering us away from that radical scarcity and toward radical abundance.
So, as a final thought, Hayes guaranteed that the belief that it never hurts to ask was the principle that opened every major door in his life.
From gaining access to the pinnacle of broadcasting to securing interviews with world-class experts for keys to success.
So considering that entire PRAA framework we've discussed, the required clear perception of your current situation, the commitment to reason in your assessment, the boldness of imagination in conceiving a solution, and the necessity of taking action.
The provocative thought for you, the listener, is this. What is the single most ambitious thing related to AI, your career, or media innovation that you could ask for today?
And more importantly, what immediate concrete action would that lead you to take tomorrow?
That is the challenge presented by the Renaissance formula.